to our machine-made guard. We're going to need to modify our timber forming buck first because this section here has no welds in it. It's going to be made by machine and also finished by hand. The process of making the guard is identical to the rear. So to modify the forming buck, we need our template, overlay, mark it, and then you can use power tools to radius it or hand tools. With the template, I've folded the back section here, making it a location point. The way you would manufacture the steel guard is identical. So start from the back, hold it in position, just with some masking tape. Once you've then attached it with the masking tape, pushing it down into the reverse curve, work your way forward. Make sure that the sides here locate on the forming buck. We can then, with a black texture, mark and highlight that. With a white China graph pencil, will come around the bottom lip, and it's that area around here that we will be shaving and shaping. I've marked a projection of the red line in. Then when we pull this away, you can see from this point to this point, we'll draw a straight line, and that is where we'll start doing the radius. You don't need to touch this area lower down. When shaping the timber, it's predominantly this section here on both sides, left and right, that we need to shave and shape. You don't touch the center line, and we don't go below that straight diagonal line either. I've radiused the nose of the forming buck, both sides. We can then refer to drawing 16, the machine-made method, which is identical to the rear guard. So from this point, we fold each of the sides. We then wheel the guard. We put our bead or our swage in the guard, fold the back edge, which will locate on our forming buck. We then stretch the concave section, and the convex is shrunk. We're nearly done. We need a little bit of fine tuning on the nose on each side. Then we'll start to introduce the round jaw shrinker and stretcher to form that nose. A little bit of hammer and dolly work will also assist it fitting as well. I'll need a witness mark around the nose as to where we actually shrink. So overlaying our template, I can then draw around on the nose, and that will be highlighted as a guide. This step of the process, we're going to be using a round jaw shrinker and stretcher, hammer and dolly. So this will do two things. Number one, it will shrink. It will introduce putting a curvature or radius in our piece. It will also, when you push in, stop at the texture line. You must stop at that point because it begins to form a de facto fold line. It's a reference for you. So the texture marks, you cannot go in too far, you can't be out too far. You must be on the texture line when you shrink. Don't shrink on any point twice, otherwise you'll have twice the amount of shrink and you'll lose the symmetry. So spacing apart every 10 millimeters or so. The next stage is we can start to use our hammer and dolly and begin to roll this section here. We'll then come back to our round jaw shrinker and begin the process of making that more uniform and also continuing to pull the nose down. I've initiated the first step in the process of shrinking around the nose, and you can see we've got a slight fold line here. However, on the outer perimeters, no. So we're using hammer and dollies now. Our cross peen planishing hammer. We've also got a tight number 10 or universal dolly. That fits up in this profile here perfectly. That radius matches that radius. Also, a comma dolly is almost as good. Not quite, because we don't have as good clearance and access. So I'll be using this little universal dolly, then forming through here. This is not a one-step process. We're going to have to fine-tune it a couple of times. Now, you probably want to This is the first step in the process, so you can start to see how it's beginning to radius. You do need to put quite a considerable amount of force up on the dolly to support it, otherwise the whole section will collapse and kink like that. Again, using the edge or the corner of the dolly, you can just start to see how that line, that definition is beginning to form. So just a quick sum up, these areas that have splayed out, the nose, the sides, etc., those are the areas that we're predominantly going to be focusing our shrinking with the round jaws around here to get this to pull in. Once we've done one more shrinking set, then we'll offer it up to the forming buck and we'll start to check and just make sure we've got the right angle, clearance, everything's looking well. Same again, shrinking up to our texture line. So you can see here where I've come in, goes straight, begins in the radius, I've started right on the end. And again, we're not doubling up on the shrinking, just nice evenly spaced, every roughly 8 to 10 millimeters apart. And just work your way in. Even where it's got a slight kink and it's a little bit difficult, just wiggle it in. This is the advantage of the round jaws. You'll never be able to do this with flat, square, shrinking jaws. With this machine, we could do the entire process of making the guard from start to finish as far as all our shrinking and stretching applications. Now, you can see here where it's flared out on the sides. That's where we've got to do most of our shrinking through each of these sides, and across the front, we'll know that by looking at the forming buck. You can see the right-hand side compared to the left. That was just 2 shrinks where it's already beginning to pull in. It's not finished, but it's progressing well. You can really see quite clearly where we're getting compression, mechanical shrinking going on, all these little ruffles and ripples, etc. So we need to keep smoothing out the process with our hand tools, and then we'll just keep coming back using the machine to do the bulk of the work, and we'll finish it by hand later on, file finishing and sanding. So gradually we're getting that clearer definition of the line. You may need to remark with the texter just so that you don't lose your reference point. I'm doing 2 things at the moment. Number 1, repairing the distortion, flattening it out. Number 2 is defining that line clearer. So it becomes more like this area where we can blend it into one continuous curvature, and it's a seamless change. We're about halfway through the process now. You can see that the nose is not quite fitting the forming buck. So what I'm going to do is just come back a little bit further with the process of shrinking to get that nose to pull down. At the moment, it's actually quite straight. We need more of a radius from about this point forward. Continue the process of shrinking around the radius and also the nose, but predominantly it's going to be in this area. Not so much in the center, it's more from about the 10 o'clock position, the 2 o'clock position, we can then work our way backwards. you can really start to see how this area is pulled down and tightened onto our forming buck. Like that's quite close, it's actually touching through here already. The nose needs a little bit more, but very, very close. A bit more shrinking through here. You can see where the edges or the shoulders are actually flared out. So we're going to need more shrinking through here. At this point you can see we've got areas that not greatly out of shape, but they just need a little bit of fine tuning using your hand tools. Using an off dolly method, which is where you support underneath the swage and hit down on the edge with the hammer. So they're not lining up together, they're offset or transferring. You can see in the light, this area through here, it's got a little bit of a dip in it, whereas this is a little bit flatter. So that's a good example of transferring, holding the dolly underneath the swage, hitting the outside so that you're creating a transfer point. Okay, so just with hand tools, you can see that that's looking quite uniform and smooth now, but again, we're not finished. I'll be trial fitting it back on the forming buck. So front on, you can still see that it's just flared out a little bit. So we'll do a little bit of fine tuning. We could use our F clamps and clamp it down, but it was very, very minor. We're almost done now. In fact, that's quite a snug fit. So what we can do is start looking at the fine tuning, the finishing off process prior to file finishing. For example, here you can see that this flange is longer than here. So therefore, later on, we'll come along, draw that out, blend it in with the texture, just an engineer's file or a belt linisher, and we'll make that more uniform. Blending that outside line down into the peak of the nose, and we'll also be filing around the peak here, directly in front of the swage, and also the nose of the guard. So far we've used our universal dolly, and that's worked really well, particularly up in these tight corners. You can see here this line is a bit sharper, more defined than our radius. To soften that off, we can then use another dolly that's got a little bit more radius on the edge, and that way it will blend in and become uniform. Just run your finger around there, finding the high spots and the low spots. So what you're doing on the high spots is working it down, and then the low spot is you're supporting underneath with the dolly, pushing with upwards force. So we're getting very close now. More fine tuning as far as perhaps one or two more shrinks. Then we can start to use an engineer's file and begin to really define that line. Again, making sure we're trying to get as many of those lumps and bumps out as we possibly can. Using an engineer's file, I literally just scrape it across the surface. It gives us an indication as to where the high spots are, the low spots. The high spots will address it in terms of just planishing it down, so you support the dolly next to it in the low spot, tapping down the high spot, and conversely with a low, you hit directly with force up on the dolly. That then will move the metal for you. There's a low, that's a high. So I'll continue to work this area and this area, metal finish it, then I'll start to work on the nose and begin to blend the finishing off process. The secret with this process is to get it 90–95% correct by using your hand tools and the shrinkers, etc. With the process of filing, you're fine-tuning the last 5%. Don't over-file it, otherwise it will crack through that fold line. We're up to the sanding or finishing stage now. I'll be using 120 grit sandpaper on an orbital air sander. After sanding with 120 grit, we've got a few small imperfections. If this was the application for spray painting, then primer, fillers, surfaces, etc. would be perfectly suitable, or a little bit of filler. If, however, we're using powder coating, these blemishes would need more work to get them smoother, so you would have to do more hammer and dolly work, a little bit of filing, and fine-tuning with the sanding. If you do end up with a blemish like this, I'll show you how to fix it. Previously, when I was mentioning don't shrink on the same spot twice, we may have gone over this same area twice. That will create that deeper divot. You can see the other area around here is quite good. So, going back to our hammer and dolly, what we're going to do is effectively squash, bring that low area out with our hammer and dolly. You really do have to apply some force. There is another way you could do it in terms of lifting it up. Using this area of the vise, we can then, with the pick hammer, not the cross peen, identify, mark with a texter, and just tap that small low area out, then refile. We've just resolved that issue of our low spot by using hand tools and engineer's file and re-sanding with 120 grit. I've just finished welding up the back of the guard. It's fitting the forming butt quite well. We've got some fine tuning to do here where we have to blend this radius into the nose, a little bit of deburring as well. So now we can get onto it by hand file or linishing. The last step in the process of making this guard is to finish the outside face. Therefore, this would be a right-hand guard. When you make the left-hand guard, you can then make sure that you're finishing the outside face on the left-hand guard. The inner face, to save yourself some time, will be welded to the inner guard. We don't need to spend as much time on it. We've finished making our front guards, but we can't mount them yet. We'll need the front end components. I've showed you how to make all these parts components using hand tools and very simple methods, as well as machinery. We've made running boards, folded. We've also made the forming butt for the rear guards, shrinking, stretching, bead rolling, and forming the nose of the front guard. In Plan 5, you'll be learning even more skills.